Hey guys, John Clark here from privatepracticeworkshop.com, helping you get more clients, make more money, and master private practice. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about exactly what I would do if I had to start all over again. That means starting a practice completely from scratch. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so by the end of this video, you're going to walk away with the exact steps that I would take, the things that I would ignore, the 3 books that I would read in the first year of doing business, and then exactly how I would spend my money. Now, I've started and scaled 2 private practices. The first one being a solo practice in San Francisco, the second one being a group practice that I sold back in April in Charlotte, North Carolina. So as you can imagine, there were a lot of hard-earned lessons along the way, and I want to share those lessons with you to help you cut out the time, energy, and money that you would otherwise spend in just figuring it all out yourself. So what's my first tip for what I would do if I had to start all over again? Well, I would get a guide. I would get help from someone who's been there before. Now, in my situation, this actually looked a bit different because I didn't have any money at all to put into my first practice. So what I did is I actually found a small business mentor. This was a guy who had worked in like retail and restaurants and things like that, but he was basically a retired guy who had run a number of small businesses, and he worked for this organization called SCORE, which is through, I think, the Small Business Association. You can get basically a free mentor through this group. And so even though he didn't know about growing a therapy practice in particular, he did have a really good understanding of business, of how to create and read a profit and loss statement, how to do cash flow projections, really basic but essential stuff that I really needed to learn early on. Now, obviously, if you can do it, I highly recommend working with a private practice expert, a therapist who is also a business coach or consultant like myself, someone who's actually grown our kind of business and has a track record of success. Again, working with a coach or consultant is going to accelerate your process tremendously. There's a lot of things that you're otherwise going to have to figure out the long, slow, and hard way, which is just completely on your own through a lot of trial and error. And that trial and error is not only extremely frustrating, it's taxing, it's expensive, and at the end of the day, it sometimes even prevents people from continuing in private practice in the first place. Okay, the second thing that I would do, and if you've been following me for a while, this is going to come as no surprise, but the second thing that I would do is create a solid plan to get clients consistently. I've said this 100 times before, but the hardest parts of running a private practice are not naming the business or setting up an LLC or finding an office. The hardest part for therapists everywhere is getting new clients and getting new clients consistently. So without a plan for this, you're not going to have a business. If you don't have clients, you don't have revenue. If you don't have revenue, you don't have a business at all. So how would I get clients consistently right off the bat? Well, I would create basically highly targeted landing pages and get those in front of paid traffic or people who are searching for a therapist in my area right now. So I would basically, just take all of my attention, all of my money, and put it into that exact plan. So I would get in front of people searching for a therapist right now, and I would make sure that I have really strong landing pages with really strong and compelling copy. So how do you create strong and compelling copy, especially when you've never done this before? You've never written copy in your life. Maybe you don't even realize what copy is. Well, copy is just the words that you use in any of your marketing collateral to communicate with the person who might be considering working with someone like you. The fastest and easiest way to kickstart your copy is to speak in plain language to the client as if the client was sitting right in front of you. Speak in language they can understand. I usually call this no greater than 3rd grade language. So you have to explain kind of what you do and how you help and all of its complexities in language that's no greater than 3rd grade language. It's hard to do, but when you think of it through that framework, it becomes a lot easier. So within this copy, I would simply speak to the before and the after of my client's situation, again in plain language, and I would position myself in the middle, right? So the before is the pain points, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what's going on in their life, their relationships, etc. The after is, what is life going to be like after therapy? What can they expect? How will they think after? How will they feel after? What will their relationships be like? And then you position yourself in the middle of that copy as part of the solution. This is an extremely easy but extremely powerful copywriting framework that you can start implementing today. Keep in mind, done is always better than perfect. Let's move on to the next point. All right, the next thing that I would do is I would sublease an office. A really common mistake that I see therapists in private practice making is that they take on too much overhead too fast. When you do this, you're really setting yourself up for a lot of unnecessary financial pressure early on, especially given that most therapists are kind of bootstrapping their practice to begin with, not taking out large business loans, etc. So every dollar counts, especially toward the beginning. There's also a lot to be said about the way that if you have too much overhead too soon, when it puts this unnecessary pressure on you, it puts pressure on everything and on every part of your business, and it really affects your mindset and your confidence going into your new private practice. It's even going to come across when you're on that initial client phone call with a potential client. So subleasing an office early on is going to allow you to grow with your business, not ahead of your business, right? So this is a really key concept for you to remember. You always want to grow with your business, right, incrementally, or in other words, grow with your revenue rather than try to grow way ahead of your revenue and take on too many expenses early on. Speaking of revenue, the next thing I would do is I would charge about $20 to $50 more than I'm comfortable with, and $20 to $50 more than what my competitors are charging. Now, I have other videos about how to set your fees in private practice within this channel, so make sure to check those out. But just to keep it short for this video, I want you to charge a bit more than you're comfortable with and more than other people are charging. A lot of people set their fees way too low early on, thinking that they're going to add, basically undercut the market and therefore make themselves more appealing. What that does is it attracts clients who don't really value your services. They don't take it as seriously as they would if they were paying a bit more, and it makes it a lot harder for you to basically take care of your bottom line. So there you have it. Charge $20 to $50 more than you're comfortable with, $20 to $50 more than your competitors are charging. Okay, one more piece about money. So the next thing I would do is I would really get control of my personal finances, because what tends to happen, I see this in a lot of therapists that I work with, is whenever they have financial issues on the business side of things, they also have financial issues on the personal side of things. So you have to get that stuff in order before you become a business owner. It's a big deal, and those habits that you have in your personal finances will absolutely carry over into your business. So I'm going to talk about my 3 books later, but a book that I'm going to recommend to you if you want help with your finance stuff is Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. This was a huge deal for me. This book was a huge deal for me, and it basically helped me figure out how important it was to get out of debt, to cut up all my credit cards and stop using them, stop borrowing money, and how basically all of my habits were affecting every single day how much I was either gaining wealth or losing wealth rapidly. So again, get control of your personal finances before you go any further, and I recommend Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. All right, we've got just a few more tips for you, but first, let's change locations. All right, let's talk about books. Now, I'm a big fan of reading business books to help you become a more savvy business owner, especially toward the beginning of your journey. I also don't want you to become what I call information bloated. So I see a lot of new business owners taking in way too much information too soon and too early on, and they take in way more than they can actually implement, so they actually end up more overwhelmed and more stuck, not knowing which steps to actually take. So for that reason, I'm going to recommend just 3 books for you to read during the first year of private practice. The first book is a book called The Personal MBA. The Personal MBA is a book that's all about basic business principles that I really wish I learned way early on. I actually just read this book a couple months ago, and I've been in business since 2013, but I can't tell you how helpful it's been in terms of learning basic business concepts that you would learn if you went to a business school or got an actual MBA. For me, it's been the closest thing that I've ever had to an MBA, and I can say that honestly. I'm not just saying that because of the title of the book. So check out The Personal MBA, and I would read that book first. The second book I would read is all about marketing. It's called The Blue Ocean Strategy. The blue ocean strategy is about basically what's called category design. So it's about being the most unique thing in your market, having the most unique offering in your market so that you can really stand out and make competition totally irrelevant. So again, Blue Ocean Strategy is a book that I would read all about marketing. Now, my third recommendation for a book is a bit of a twist. It's actually not a business book, it's a therapy book. The book is The Gift of Therapy by Irvin Yalom. Now, I've been a fan of Yalom for a long time. I kind of grew up as a therapist, reading a lot of Yalom and practicing interpersonally and psychodynamically. So that just has a lot to do with my orientation, but at the same time, it's an amazing book in little bite-sized chapters, basically, of things you can do to better manage the client-therapist relationship. And to me, this is everything. The client's outcome in therapy has a lot to do with how you regard them and how well you manage that relationship, and the strength of your own belief in yourself and in your ability to help that person. So if you don't really refine the product itself in private practice, which is us and the quality of therapy we provide, then all the business stuff that I can teach you on top of that is going to completely fall flat. So again, The Gift of Therapy by Irvin Yalom. Okay, so speaking of that client relationship starts not only through your marketing, but also through that initial client inquiry. So my next step is learn how to handle those initial client inquiries. Now, I teach all about how to do this, how to handle this process in my program. It's called Fully Booked, but here's just a couple steps to get you started. First, when you start that call, it's just about gaining rapport and gathering information. So trying to understand what's going on for the client, get a feel for the problems that they need your help with. From there, I would confirm their decision or affirm their decision to reach out. We know that reaching out is hard. We know that getting started with a new therapist is hard. So we want to really affirm that right off the bat. Next, I would explain how you help, but better yet, explain how you've helped someone like them in the past. This is going to do two things. This is going to both further the rapport with that potential client, and it's also going to demonstrate some of your expertise without being so overt about just saying, oh yes, I'm an expert in this thing, versus here's how I've helped someone in your situation in the past, and this is what their outcome was like. Finally, if you are an out-of-network provider, you want to state your fee plainly and then offer no more than 2 openings. Especially when you're early on, you might have a lot of openings, but you don't want to offer 5 or 6 or 7 or say, yeah, I can meet you anytime on Friday, right? You just want to offer no more than 2 openings and then move them through your scheduling process quickly and smoothly. Okay, 2 more steps for you guys. The next one is, speaking of that client relationship, again, learn how to set client expectations very well from the beginning. I recommend having a 48-hour cancellation policy and communicating this clearly very early on. I recommend a 48-hour policy because with 24 hours, people tend to cancel a lot more, and it's going to be a lot harder for you to fill that slot in the event that someone does cancel. I would only allow clients to come either weekly or bi-weekly. A lot of times you'll get clients who just want to come once a month, or they can only afford to come once a month, and you just want to communicate to them that I work with clients weekly or bi-weekly because you have to come weekly or bi-weekly in order to get the best results from your therapy. And if they're not okay with that policy, then they might not be a good fit for you. They might not be totally committed to therapy, or they might just not be ready. Finally, I would monitor my own retention and attrition. I would want to see, when clients are coming into my practice and I'm working really hard through my marketing to get them in the door, what's the percentage of clients that are actually staying with me, and what's the percentage that are leaving? Now, you can do all of this and more with my owner dashboard. It's a tool that I sell at privatepracticeworkshop.com, so you can track your retention and attrition among tons of other really, really key metrics in your practice. Speaking of which, that brings us to our very last point, which is to track all your metrics really closely. You need to track what we call your key performance indicators, or your KPIs. You track your KPIs by having a central tool that actually tells you which KPIs to track in the first place. And then within those those KPIs, you'll be able to diagnose problems in your business. You'll be able to do simple projections to see where the business is going, how much money you're going to be making this month and beyond, and really just get a sense of control over your business. And all these things combined are extremely powerful, especially when you're just starting out in private practice. I talk all about what we call the life-changing magic of KPIs in one of our podcast episodes within the Private Practice Workshop podcast. So you can always go back and check out that episode wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, so that does it for this video. Again, to recap really quickly, and I will have to glance at my notes, the first thing I would do is find a guide, get help from someone who's been there before. The second thing I would do is make a plan to get clients and get clients consistently. Third thing, I would sublease an office so I'm not growing too fast. The next thing I would do, charge $20 to $50 more than I'm comfortable with and more than my competitors are charging. I would learn personal finance and get a hold of my personal finances before moving forward. I would read those 3 books I mentioned, learn how to handle inquiry calls, learn how to set expectations in the beginning with new clients, and learn how to track my metrics closely. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot. If I can help you with any of this stuff and more, just head to privatepracticeworkshop.com. I'd be happy to help you out. Again, privatepracticeworkshop.com. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you in another video soon.